We are back on Morning Line on this Tuesday. It is our final segment with Barbara McGinnis from Takacs and McGinnis, the number 737-7587. If you'd like to join in the conversation talking about elder law and the like. And I'm sorry I interrupted you while you were in the middle of a thought to get to Betty on that from Bowling Green, but I think we just helped her. But do you want to pick up just with regard to some of the common mistakes with estate planning and, some of, I don't know, the basics there of making sure the right names are where and updating your list of beneficiaries is where you were at, which I imagine is quite important if you want to make sure the money goes where you want.
It is. Beneficiary designations will trump whatever you have in your will. So making sure that that they are current for your life situation, right? Your life is pretty simple. Your beneficiaries are your spouse. Well, then that's easy. But your spouse passes away, then who are your beneficiaries going to be? And rarely ever would you have the estate named as your beneficiary, because that pretty much guarantees that an estate has to be opened, i.e. probate has to be open. And you may be trying to avoid that and thought you were doing something easy. Well, anyway, you've kind of made things harder. So 2 points out of that would be, one, it's real important to be organized. All of us cannot accumulate the nest egg we hope that we would be able to have and enjoy retirement and pay for our long-term care. But there's no reason all of us cannot be organized, that we leave a literal mess for children or for someone to come and pick up. Have the conversation with these people that are going to be taking care of you. Let them know where assets are. Perhaps you don't give them access immediately, but at least give them a clue as to what kind of life insurance do you have? Where is it? What about burial plots? Banks, how many different banks do you have money in? People frequently have money in 2 or 3 banks in addition to investment companies. So giving the people that are going to be helping you manage your affairs during the rest of your life and after your life a clue, a list of assets. Again, sometimes folks are reluctant to share the amount. Frequently, I'm even able to help folks create an estate plan and not know the exact amount of their 401k or whatever. As long as their beneficiaries are updated, some information can be private, but everything does not have to be private. You're just making life harder. So I would encourage organization on your part, on everyone's part, keeping a list of assets. Now that list of assets includes your digital assets, having the conversations, giving folks a clue where they can get information, who your trusted advisors are, where are your estate plan documents. And the other thing is, we like to be independent folks. We can find almost everything we need to know on the internet. But I would really caution people estate planning is not a do-it-yourself project. You could probably figure out on the internet how to, pull a tooth or take your appendix out. Doesn't mean it's a good idea for you to do it yourself. And likewise with your estate plan, you need to at least have the counsel of an attorney to make sure that your goals are being met by the documents that have been prepared for you.
If you're not sure about that, and if you're watching this program, I've already heard several things that Barbara's told me that I didn't even consider or think about. That's why it helps to have someone go over this like Takacs and McGinnis. And just made a question popped into my head. You talked about having a beneficiary for a 401k. So let's say someone has a 401k that they're drawing on. They're of legal age to be drawing on it. They're in their 60s and they pass away. And they leave that 401k, the remaining assets in it, to a son who is now in his 30s and is not of age to draw on it. I'm just curious, does the son have to wait until he becomes of age to draw on that 401k, or does that money just all of a sudden at that point go to him at once?
Interesting. The answer is is actually neither of those things. Under the Secure Act, let's say the son is the named beneficiary on that 401k. Well, if the person was only in their 60s, they could draw on it, but they're not of the age that they have to start drawing, which is now 70 and a half or 71 and a half, and it's going up. But anyway, so until you're actually in your RMD phase, your required minimum distribution phase, your son would inherit that money, and he would take that money. The money would be distributed to him over 10 years.
Interesting. Wow. See, I was wondering how that would work. Now that's quirky. It's over 10 years. So he'll get access to the money.
Not his life expectancy,
Right.
not the previous owner's life expectancy, but 10 years. And that's actually part of the Secure Act, which happened it went into effect December of 19. It was going to be really big news for 2020, but then COVID came along and nothing was big news for 2020 except trying to survive the pandemic.
And that's the only option. You couldn't, if you say, well, look, I'm getting my dad's 401k. Let's say my dad was 72 when he died. There's still quite a bit of money there. He left it to me as the beneficiary. Could I just roll that into my 401k if I have one existing? Nope, I've got to take it over 10 years. But I'd have that cash that I can spend right then and there with no penalty over those 10 years. I get that money. Because, if you withdraw early from 401k, you get hammered with penalties. But since my dad already served his time.
No penalty, but taxes.
No
penalties, but it will be taxed. Because all that retirement money goes in pre-tax.
Right.
Unless it's a Roth.
I was going to say, with a Roth, would the same thing happen with a Roth, by the way? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but 10 years with a Roth as well?
Okay.
10 years with a Roth as well, Barbara?
Yes, but of course the implications is much easier because there's no taxes, right? It's just the gains on that. The taxes have already been paid. So people that are heavily invested in qualified accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, all those things that are your retirement pre-tax money, you definitely need a financial advisor to help you, a certified financial advisor to help you put together a plan for how that money will then be passed along to your spouse does get to roll it over and treat it as if it is their own. But they're the only person that gets to do that. Everybody else, children, grandchildren, everybody else, tax implications, shortened period of time of distribution. So talking to your financial advisor about ways to minimize the tax implication, like, do I get life insurance to help cover the taxation? Because if I have $1 million IRA and my child has to draw that out over 10 years, there's going to be considerable taxes on that. Some question about whether they can draw it periodically over 10 years or whether they can just let it grow during that 10 year and take it all out in the 10th year. That way they've got at least 9 years of continued growth that effectively helps with taxation. Or do the original owners convert these accounts to Roths over time, say after they've retired, but so that they're at a lower tax bracket, they can start converting them to Roths and minimize the tax burden for children. It's a strange new rule that disincentivizes investment in qualified accounts, I think, because people still aren't really aware of what the implications are going to be for inheritance.
Yeah, and boy, the taxes.
Not that it's ever a bad idea.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not that it's ever a bad thing to inherit money, but you may be inheriting money with a considerable tax hit.
Yeah, that's I know you're not an investment counselor in that realm, but you probably see clients who have a large Roth and a 401k, and if they want to draw on their 401k, it helps if you have the Roth, because you could say, I'm just going to take enough, I need this much, but I'm going to take this much out of my 401k that doesn't bump me up into a higher tax bracket, and I'll take the rest out of Roth to compensate for it with no tax. That's what my financial counselor said. Look, it's a good idea to have a little bit of money in both,
Right. And if you are older and you are starting to need to pay for care, and you have money in your IRA, it may be a good idea to use that money before you dip into other non-qualified funds for the same reasoning, right? It's beneficial for you to use that money because now you have medical expenses. I'm not an accountant either, but now you have medical expenses to help offset that tax burden. And it allows for potential inheritance for children's sake, the non-qualified funds, which is a little more pleasant to inherit.
Barbara, you are awesome as usual. That was a quick hour. I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll have to talk to you again in a month or so. Maybe you or Tim, or maybe both of you, whatever, but it's nice to see you. It really is.
Nice to see you too, Nick.
Listen,
thanks for doing this with us.
Hey, thank you for coming on, and we'll see you again sometime soon. We'll take a break. When we come back, I'll have contact information for Takacs and McGinnis. If you want to call, it doesn't cost you a thing to inquire about how they can help you set up for the future. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back with a programming note right after this, and thank you again, Barbara.